All right, so moving on to our last section in chapter 12, we're talking about circles in the coordinate plane. So first we talked about angles, then we talked about segments of circles, and now we're going to just talk about circles themselves on a graph. So we're also going to use an equation to graph a circle and solve problems. So here we go. So the first theorem and the only theorem of this section is equation of a circle. This actually comes up basically on every standardized and placement test. So definitely something we're going to want to remember. So the equation of a circle with a center at HK and a radius of R is given by the following formula. You're going to have something squared plus another thing squared equals another thing squared. So it kind of is reminiscent of your Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that's actually part of where it comes from. So what you need to do here is take your x value, because that's going to be what represents horizontal movement, and then subtract the h, which is in that x place. Square that, and then add to that the y value minus the k, and then that's going to equal your radius squared. We do want to be careful that we have minus signs here and not plus. This is the plus, but these are minuses. Okay, or subtraction. Just for reference, this is our circle, and this would be the coordinate of the center of the circle, and then we also need to know r, our radius. All right. So we're going to write an equation of each circle, and it turns out that the center of J is at 2, 2. And so looking back at our formula, the center is actually HK. So this is our H, this is our K, and this is our radius. So the formula says that you're going to take x minus h, square it, and then add y minus k, square that, and it will equal r squared. So notice that there are no x's or y's because every equation needs to have an x and a y. So we're going to keep our x, we're going to keep our y. In fact, the only thing that we're going to insert here is the h value, the k value, and the r value. So the h value is 2. The k value is 2. Notice that it looks like I plugged in a -2, but the negative comes from the formula. And then the r value is 4. The only way to simplify this is just to write 4 squared as 16. Otherwise, the exact answer is just x minus 2, that quantity squared, y minus 2, that quantity squared, equals 16. So plug it in and done. The next piece wants you to write the equation of this circle, only now instead of telling you the center and just the radius, they told you a center and a point on the circle. So we do know that the center is k, which is an h and a k value here. But then to find our radius, we need the distance from j to k, because it's saying that the circle passes through this point and has this center. So if I kind of draw an image of what's happening here, it has a center of 1, -8. Right there. And that's where k would be. And then it passes through 6, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we're saying is this is the radius, bad straight line there, of a circle that goes all the way around here. Okay, so they've already told us that if this is k and this is j, they've given you the endpoints of the radius. So we just need to do the distance between them in order to have our r. So r is going to be the distance formula, and perhaps you remember the distance formula is x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared, and then all of that square rooted. So we'll call this x1 and y1, and this x2 and y2 for now. And so x1 is 6, and then we'll subtract 1, which is x2. And then we'll add that to y1, which is 4, minus y2, which is minus a negative 8, so plus an 8. Then 6 minus 1 is 5, which we'll be squaring. And 4 plus 8 is 12, which we'll be squaring. And so we have the square root of 25 plus 144. And that is the square root of 169, which is 13. So our radius is now 13. And so now we can write our formula. So the circle formula tells us that we have x minus h plus y minus k equals r squared. And the only things that we need to plug in are our h and our k and our radius. So the radius we just said was 13. The h value is 1 and the k value is negative 8. So I'm going to put a plus 8 there. Again, the only thing to simplify this is just to, oh, I forgot all my squareds. Boop, boop. So just to go ahead and rewrite this as 169. There it is. What happens with this formula a lot is that you might think that you should distribute this squared and get a positive 1 and a 64 or something like that. But hopefully we all know from algebra at least that this expanded is actually y squared plus 16x plus 64. So we don't want to expand anything, just keep it in this way. Especially if you keep it in this way, then you can immediately see the center. And so it's very easy to go from. All right, so that's the one that doesn't give the radius. There it is. Now we're going to go backwards, and now we're given the formula, and we're going to graph it. So taking a look at this in comparison to the formula, which said x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. If there is nothing added to this x or this y, or even subtracted, that means that h and k are both 0. Right? So that means that our center is at 0, 0. Okay? Then be careful with this 16, because you might think, okay, the radius is 16, but the radius squared equals 16. So if we square root both of those, that means that our radius is actually 4. So how do you graph that? You're going to go from this dot out 4, and even this one out 4, and this one out 4. And I suppose if you have a compass, you can make this really pretty. But the idea is that you're going to kind of follow a curve here to hit all of these 4s. Whoops. So that's our circle with center 0, 0 and radius 4, which came from that 16. All right, and then the last one here doesn't have a center at 0 anymore. So again, referencing x minus h and y minus k equals r squared. Our h value is going to be 3. But our y value, notice, has a positive in here, which means that we need y, well, I just jumped. This can be written as y minus negative 4, right? So that means that k is negative 4. Anytime that you see a positive here, that means that you would just have the opposite symbol. So 3, negative 4 is your center. So over 3 down 4. And then your radius, remember, is equal to the square root of that number at the end. So square root of 9 gives a radius of 3. So from our center, we'll go up 3, left 3, right 3 and down 3 so that we can kind of draw our curves here. There we go. My God, that was really nice. I love that circle. Woo. Okay. Anyway, you can make a really awesome circle like that. Sweet. Okay, so that is graphing a circle from the coordinate plane. So taking a look at what we have here, hopefully we were able to write an equation from the graphs of circles, and then also use the equation to graph a circle and solve problems. So there we go.